Television is not the truth. Television is a goddamn amusement park. Television is a circus, a carnival, a traveling troupe of acrobats, storytellers, dancers, singers, jugglers, sideshow freaks, lion tamers, and football players. We're in the boredom-killing business. So turn off your television sets. Turn them off now. Turn them off right now. Turn them off and leave them off. Turn them off right in the middle of the sentence I'm speaking to you now. Turn them off.
Stop them. An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army.
Welcome to TLBTV, Eradicating Programmed Ignorance. And today we have another special show whereby we're going to introduce somebody to the entire TLB family who you might have already seen some of his works on the network, on some of our sites, and all across social media. That is my good friend, and believe me, I consider him to be a friend. Anybody with a soul that beautiful, you've got to count them as a friend. If you don't, you're making a serious mistake. He's a phenomenal poet. He's a great songwriter. He's an excellent musician, and he's an outstanding author. Oh my God, so what are his qualifications to be part of the Liberty Beacon family? I would say very deep qualifications. And we're so happy and so proud to have you here. But before we bring you in, Alan, I want to, and of course everybody knows my phenomenal co-host, Rebecca Mahan, who also is the host of Rebecca Sounds Reveille. So if you haven't seen that show, please watch it. Rebecca, I understand you've got a little bit to say about Mr. Morrison before we bring him into the show?
I absolutely do. I mean, I am just so impressed. I'm tongue-tied. He is an incredible man. Not only is he a writer, but he's a poet, a songwriter, a performer. He does acting, and he has a phenomenal background. He's lived in Sweden, Germany, Spain, and he has got some very prolific writing. And for those of you who have not had an opportunity to read it, you have got to either go, or both, I encourage, going to thelibertybeacon.com and seeing his contributions there, as well as his website, alan-morrison.com. He's an absolutely incredible man. He has been described in the, by a reviewer as sort of a mix between English folk rock, progressive folk, and alternative country. So there's a lot in there. And not only is the instrumental portion of it incredible, you've got to hear his voice. He's absolutely going to just blow you away, because you look and then you hear, and it's absolutely amazing. Most recently, though, he has an album that has come out, but prior to that, in 2010, he released his CD album called Ride My Heart, and it was recorded in Stockholm. And so there's a lot of background that goes with this. He's also recorded the end of the song, and in May-June-ish 2016, he recorded The Key. His work, I've got to tell you, Roger, there's more to it than meets the eye. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome you, Alan, to the show.
Thank you.
You do realize how much you have to live up to now.
Well, I'm trying to relate to all this,
I didn't even go into his book that he has, right, where, I mean, he's got 200 poems.
Well, all of the information about his books, his music, his albums, his life, his bio, all of that will be, of course, embedded in this article that you are watching this show in right now. So just look below the show. There is a virtual plethora, a cacophony of information on Mr. Morrison. Now, what I'd like you to do is start off and tell everybody out there, because you and I have discussed this, and I find it to be very interesting. Let's get a little bit about your background, where you've been, what you've done. Nobody writes poetry like that. Nobody writes 26-page articles. 26, that's a freaking mini ebook, okay? And everybody who has read it says, that's a long read, but it was worth the time. Everybody who has read it, pretty much 90% or more, have stated that. So you need to have a background to write the way you do, to sing the way you do, to perform music, or even to write music the way you do. You don't just come off the cuff and do this. There's nothing commercial about what you do, Alan. This is so heartfelt, especially the two songs that are already in the article below this show. They're so heartfelt. So tell us a little bit about your motivations.
Real quick, I got to jump in there, Roger, because one word comes to mind, and that is passion.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a great believer in passion. But if I want, there's a motto that's been at the heart of my life really since I was a child, I think. And that motto is, leave no stone unturned. And that's, if you like, that's the school of journalism that I come from, of inquiry, of research, of all aspects of the art, everything actually, in terms of life, the cosmos, spirituality, whatever. Leave no stone unturned. And that's how I like to approach things. And so when I'm writing, quite often I'm writing on a complex issue, trying to make it simple. And all the time, if you want to do it well, you have to anticipate what questions people are going to be coming up with. That's that you have to be an empathist. You have to be able to empathize in order to do that stuff. And that's part of leaving no stone unturned, is working out what everyone else is going to be anticipating, what everyone else is going to be questioning, so you can come up with the questions. And that's why inevitably it turns into a longer article than you might have thought.
Well, you write with passion, but you write from your heart. Actually, there's a lot of people who write from their heart. I write from my heart. Rebecca writes from her heart. The thing of it is, you take it a little bit deeper. I think I see your soul in just about everything I've read and everything I've listened to from you. It's not often, actually it's quite rare, that you can see someone's soul in the work they do. Now, you've written about the death of children, okay, due to the hostilities going on around the planet. You've written about truth. You've written about, and all of this, as you say, you leave no stone unturned, because at the end of each one of these articles, at the end of each one of these songs, what you've developed in the listener's mind or the reader's mind is a solid concept. Today, we have a society, and this is what I want you to speak to. Today, we have a society that is used to everything being abbreviated. Okay, if you go on Twitter, you need to say everything in 140 letters. That's it. You have 140 letters to put a concept forward. I got to tell you something. Most people fail at that. Twitter is full of so much gibberish. It's insane, right? But
well, that's what the word Twitter kind of means, really.
Yeah. Okay. We won't even go into that. But what you do is you relay to the listener, the watcher, the reader. You relay a sense of your soul, a little piece of your soul. Okay. Let's talk about that a little bit more, because your life, and I haven't gotten you to crack into this yet, and I want you to, your life had to have set you up to write these type of things. They don't come off the cuff. You have seen things, you have experienced things, you've traveled, you've done a lot of traveling, so have I. I spent 20 years traveling the globe, 80% of every year, so I'm aware of this. Tell us what put you into the frame of mind, what established the scenario by which you could sit down and share a little bit of your soul.
Well, it's because I believe in authenticity, if it doesn't sound too corny. And I think if somebody's going to present something to other people, a work of art of any kind, you can't just be pretentious about it. you have to be authentic. And to be authentic, you have to reveal something of who you are. And so I can't actually help that. And one of the reasons that that happens is because there have been many stages of my life when I've had to, how can I put it, go back to the drawing board of everything. Very often I've sort of been into something, and then suddenly I discovered that actually I have to kind of prise this open and work out what it is and what it's all about. And that means I have to go right back to the drawing board of my ideas. I don't just like to take a bunch of other people's ideas on board, which is very easy to do. These days you can just pick up a self-help book and say, oh yeah, that's how it goes, and just take it on as your kind of cape, your cloak, your disguise. But I can't do that. I have to work things out for myself and understand them for myself. And I think if you go into yourself, you can't help but, well, confront your demons for a start, which you then have to deal with and get rid of, because I don't think you can be any use to anybody else until you do. And especially if you're arting, as I call it, doing art, which is anything like writing, painting, whatever, in which the chief aim is to communicate with people. You're not just creating something for its own sake in a self-indulgent way. I'm actually reaching inside somebody's heart, you know, in order to touch them, to reach them completely, so that there's a proper exchange takes place. I don't think art has happened unless that happens.
So,
Well,
go ahead, Rebecca.
you know, I'm just thinking, Roger, how you expressed that the communication method via Twitter is just 140 characters. But Alan, you have really just said something that is so much forgotten in how communication is just essential to everything that we do. And we are really lacking that. And what's happening is we're seeing that with a ton of different unhealthy behaviors because people don't know how to communicate. I think that with what you are doing by using that as your tool for communicating and writing and song and performing, I think that that is just absolutely incredible.
Well, the thing is, you see, most people, rightly so, if I may say so, these days are suspicious of other people, particularly if they are set up as some kind of teacher or whatever. And that, in a sense, that's how I would regard myself. People have every right to be suspicious of you and to sort of put a barrier up, if you like. So before I do anything, I have to somehow dismantle that barrier in the most gracious way possible so that the communication can then happen.
All right. I've been talking to you for a while. We've had several conversations. We see what's happening here. I've read your writing, so on and so forth. Quick question, yes or no? Do you ever get mad?
No.
I can't picture you getting mad.
No, I don't. But I do believe there is such a thing as righteous anger, for example, which is different to getting mad. For instance, if I was walking down the street and I saw a woman being beaten by her guy or something, something would well up in me and I would deal with it. I wouldn't lose my temper, I wouldn't get mad, but sometimes you have to have some dynamic that happens to make you do something. And quite often it's some kind of, maybe outrage is too strong a word, but violence, for instance, has always caused me to feel outraged, but not in the kind of I'm mad sense. There's no point in that whatsoever. And you kind of get over feeling mad, I think, when you get you sit back and get an overview of everything that's going on in the universe and where everything's heading, and you see everything in its context. You pull right back and see it from the stratosphere. You can't really get mad then. It doesn't mean that you're not an activist, because you're still proactive and you do things, but getting mad in itself is kind of counterproductive.
I don't think getting mad fits your personality. I don't, and I absolutely love your personality, so please don't take that as a negative comment. But also understand, there are personalities out there where showing a little bit of anger, showing a little bit of reinforcement in what they're saying by raising their voice or making their eyebrows go up, or raising the octave a little bit and the volume in what they're saying, it does help a certain type of personality in delivering the message. where I agree with you 100%, okay? And I'm a person who will, okay, I will use volume. I will use, and it's never pretend, okay? I am the most honest person you will ever meet in your life. I will never lie. I will never exaggerate. Integrity is what carries the Liberty Beacon Project forward. We have integrity. If we say it, we're going to back it up. And if we are proven wrong, we're going to admit it to the world. We're not going to hide it. We're not going to make it go away. Okay, we're going to state we made a mistake. But what I do understand is that anger has its place. It does in communication. At the same time, it depends on the personality. That doesn't fit your personality. You have the ability to communicate, which I state, if you continue reading, everybody who's watching this, in the article below, I state that your strong point is communication. Whether it's on paper, whether it's on a computer screen, whether it's through your guitar, whether it's through the microphone you're singing into, it doesn't matter. Your strong point is the ability to communicate. And let's go back to, what are you communicating? And I think you agreed with this. You're communicating a piece of your soul. So let's take that just a little bit deeper, because this is not a very long show. So I want you to, again, I'm going to push you back in this direction, okay? You wrote some very heartfelt, a very heartfelt song about the death of so many children, the unnecessary death of so many children, okay? And I could go on and on. I love the album Key. It is absolutely phenomenal, but it has a virtual rainbow of songs in it. You cover one spectrum almost all the way to the other.
Yes,
right?
yes. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that.
And that's one of the things I want you to explain. But when you sit down and you write a song about children dying all across the planet.
Yes.
Where in your life, what in your life, okay, gives you the, I don't want to use the word audacity, gives you the privilege to sit down and tell everybody else why that is wrong? I know the answer, but I'm trying to get you to say it.
Well, I went to a songwriting workshop once. I think it was when will it have been? I don't know, 1998 or 9 or something like that, I think. And one of the things that I was told on this workshop was, you must never write a song about death. And immediately, as soon as I hear that, I want to write a song about death. You know, if somebody waves that in front of me, it's like a restriction that's ridiculous. And death is something that is in most people's back of most people's minds in a way. But deaths of children is something extraordinary, because a child is a representative of life. You know, I was watching a video of some children today. They just play the whole time. They are kind of a complete representation of the wonderfulness of life, the presence of life. And to see a dead child is just bizarre, really. It's totally bizarre. It's contrary to everything that's of nature. And
they also represent the future of humanity as well.
That's true too. That's true too. I mean, the thing is that, well, there were a number of things on this particular occasion with this particular song that went into the dynamic of that. Apart from the fact that I was with the woman I was with at the time, I was looking at some, there was a journalist from the Independent newspaper in the UK who was cataloguing the deaths of children, because it was being claimed that it was, you know, these were precision strikes and all this kind of thing, and it was so obviously bullshit. And he was cataloguing pictures of children who'd been killed and maimed and injured in the war, and it was really quite horrific. Some of the pictures were awful. There was one of a young child who had half his head blown away, and the woman I was with looked at the computer screen and she just said, "That's someone's child," like that, right? Which is a very powerful thing to say, and because it traces back the whole lineage. You know, that's not just a child, it's someone's child, you know, and it's the whole kind of the way that everything goes forward in the growth of humanity. And so that phrase just stuck in my head, and the next day I had to go to Barcelona, and it was quite chilly still in April, and I was kind of shivering walking across this square, the Plaza de Catalunya, and all of a sudden the song just came to me, really, with the tune. It just sort of started itself. And next to me was this kind of department store called Il Corte Inglés, which is a bit like Macy's or something like that, or Harrods or something. And I went upstairs onto the top floor, and you could just look out over the whole city. And I just sat down, I had tears streaming down my face, and I just wrote the song, and it was like 10, 15 minutes, and it was all cooked. And sometimes they happen like that, you know, and that was one of them. And that's it. That's the story behind the song.
Well, you capture so much in that song, and that's one of the reasons why when you gave me that originally, I absolutely knew we had to turn this into a video with slideshows representing what you were trying to say in that song. And I hope we did it justice, because a lot of people like it.
Yeah, it's a requiem, really, you see, that song. It's a requiem, but if you notice, it's in E major. It's not in a minor song, and you'd think normally writing a requiem about dead children that it would be like in A minor or something, and a little bit dirgy kind of thing, but it's actually in a major key, which the idea was to give it a sense of hope, you know, that these children have actually, although they died in vain in the sense of that particular instant, in global terms, in universal terms, nothing is in vain, because everything is a lesson.
Well, you see, why this was, and I know Rebecca wants to jump in here, but let me make one more point on that song and why it was so special to me. Okay? If you stop and think, when you put a child into perspective, okay, especially a young child, you hit the note right on the head. They represent life, but they also represent the future, okay? Because how we treat our children is what society is going to turn into. And this is why there is so much stress with people my age, with 3 generations or more of perspective, looking back on the way the newest generation is being raised, with so much tyranny and so much corruption and so much, all of this going on around them. And this is going to formulate how the world is eventually going to see itself. But there's one more thing, okay? When I see a dead child, I immediately think of, and most people will back off when they first hear me say this, I immediately think of the rapidly spreading amount of terrorism on this planet. Because what generates a terrorist? If I'm off at the market and I come home only to find out that my home has been bombed and my wife and my 3 infant children are dead, you have just made an enemy. Now, to me, I have a righteous right, okay, to come after you for what you have taken away from me and the future of this community. But to the person who dropped the bombs, I am a terrorist. We, due to the meddling, and I won't even say who we is because everybody's going to know, the massive meddling within the Middle East, the massive meddling in Sudan, the massive meddling in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Libya, and I could go on and on and on. We have manufactured several generations of cold-hearted terrorists. And when we look back and we wish to put blame on somebody, hopefully there's a mirror close by. Now, would you agree with that?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Rebecca, I know you want to say something.
Well, you know, my interest in one of your songs has to do with my expertise in domestic violence. And you have a song titled Victim, and I wanted to hear a little bit more about that.
You know she's a retired police officer. You know that, right?
You mentioned it. You did mention that, yes.
Okay.
Well, it's interesting you picked up on that. It's a very precious song to me. I wrote it for a very close friend who repeatedly kept making bad choices as far as guys are concerned. And she said to me one day, she expressed great frustration about it. And, you know, what can I do, sort of thing. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'll write you a song. And she said, yeah, well, go ahead, write me a song. And I said, I'll write you a song so you'll never forget the message, kind of thing. And I did. That's how that song came about. It's kind of in 2 halves, really. There's 2 different songs within that song. One is sort of saying, you're just making yourself into a victim. And then the other one is saying, this isn't actually really who you are. And yeah, you probably picked up on that. And actually, it has actually worked, if I may say so.
Fantastic.
She doesn't make those choices anymore.
I love it. This is very refreshing to hear. And that just goes on to support everything that we were talking about in the power of what your music and your writing does. You have the passion and the communication for those who are receiving your messages to actually absorb them.
I can look at a lot of the work that people do. We have some very good artists and musicians who have done work with and for the Liberty Beacon Project. One is the Golden State Band in California. They do phenomenal work, they really do. But in anybody's work I look at, I can see the commercial influence. I can see it, okay? I'm the type of person who doesn't miss much. And this is why I do what I do, okay? I don't sit here and preach to people because somebody told me I need to tell people about this. I came from the other side of the tracks. I worked for the Department of Defense for this country for 20 years and was in the military for almost another 10. So I worked for what I rail against and figured it was all good and it was all okay. And then one day I woke up to the fact that it really wasn't. And that everything I thought I knew, when you become awake, okay, it'll either tear your soul out from under you or it'll lift you up in a phenomenal fashion. I went through both of those in a 1-week period. That really rearranges your life quickly. And that's not always a pleasant thing. But in everybody's music, or in a lot of the writing I see, I can find the spots where it's influenced by the commercial factor or the commercialism. I can't find it in what you do. I'm not telling anybody listening that's a bad thing. It's not.
Well, I'm very glad.
I cannot find that influence in what you do, and you're one of the first people I can say that about.
Well, it's part of when I was saying earlier about authenticity being important. Another thing I think is important is originality. There's no point in just being a clone. If you're going to do art, it has to come from your heart, not via somebody else's. So that's it.
Okay, well, I'm going to give you the last question or the last comment to put to Alan, and then we're going to wrap this up because it was an intro show. 2 of the songs that we talked about today, the 2 songs that you're going to find in the article below this show as you're watching the show, we're going to take those and we're going to break them down. We're going to do an hour-long discussion on those 2 songs. And I cannot think of a better show, and I cannot think of a better individual to come and tell us why.
Okay.
I want to thank all of our viewers for taking an opportunity to get to know Alan Morrison. And if you would like to find out more, again, you can go to thelibertybeacon.com or Alan, ALAN-Morrison.com. And Alan, I just want to thank you so much for being on the show and allowing us an opportunity to really get to know and understand a little bit more about you and what you do and the messages that you are trying to convey to those who are seeing, hearing, and reading your work. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
All right, now it's you, my friend. Take about a minute. Tell us anything you would like us to know about you, your passions, anything. Give us a wrap up, please.
Okay. Well, yeah, all right.
On the spot.
No, that's fine. I just have to let it melt a little bit. Whatever's happening, especially like something like this, where you're focusing on someone called Alan Morrison, I'm naturally quite a retiring person. I'm basically a hermit in my heart, and I have to make an effort to get out there. I mean, I'm living in total obscurity on the side of a volcano on an island in the middle of the Atlantic, you know. But to me, if anything is able to facilitate the communication of the art, then that's what counts. I'm not interested in, you know, making a big deal out of myself. That's just totally unnecessary. And I think it's very easy when you start to be in the public eye, especially in the arts, and people start to appreciate you, it's actually very easy to fall into vanity and all the rest of it. And those are kind of things I really run away from at the first possible opportunity. So I'm really grateful to you for giving me an opportunity not to promote myself, but to promote these works, which are very precious to me. They're my babies, you know. So it's like you're taking an interest in my kids, you know.
Well, I agree with you, but I'd use one more word you didn't use, okay?
Go for it.
And that's vanity.
Mm.
It is. I find it very hard to bring myself forward, and Rebecca and Ralph, our director, will be the first to tell you that I don't like doing TV shows. I don't like doing radio shows. As a matter of fact, Rebecca has to keep telling me she wants more light on me because I would rather sit back in the shadow where you could barely see me. I also live an isolated life. I live in the middle of the mountains in a state that's not so heavily populated. And I'm surrounded by trees and woods and brooks and ponds and rivers and and waterfalls. And I like that isolation because it allows me to focus on the message, not myself, but the message. Okay. And it keeps me from being distracted. Look, you don't have to promote yourself. That's exactly what we're going to do. Okay. And we don't promote those who we don't feel deserve to be promoted. We're giving you a venue, we're giving you a platform because you deserve a venue and a platform. And we will do our best to make sure as many people out there are aware of what you can present. Not you, but what you can present. Because I think that makes you more comfortable. That we're not so much promoting Alan Morrison as we're promoting the key, as we're promoting the anything that you feel is worth the effort in the lines of communication. We'll always be there for you, my friend.
Well, I know it works. You see, I believe in the power of words. I know music is very powerful in itself, but I do believe in the power of words hugely. And I'm very fortunate to get a lot of emails from people and messages who have been affected by words in a major way. And so I've seen firsthand how things happen. And so all I want to do, really, if I can put it like this, is break hearts. You know, because you can't make an omelette without cracking some eggs. And I think if you melt people's hearts, then they tend to get built up in the right way afterwards.
Oh, I love it. And you use the word hugely. I would use the word that our newest president has coined, bigly. You do it bigly. You really do. And we all appreciate you. And for everybody watching, this has been Eradicating Programmed Ignorance, brought to you by TLBTV. As always, with my phenomenal co-host, Rebecca Mahan, and with our newest member of the Liberty Beacon family, Alan Morrison. Alan, we appreciate you. We thank you so much for giving us the time, for putting forth the effort to help us to give you that venue. And we wish everybody listening a phenomenal evening. And make sure, once you're done watching the show, to continue reading the article below. The songs we talk about, the links to Alan's website, and much, much more is contained in that article. Thank you all.